Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Go ahead and share this. We're going to get started. I'm reposting it. So tag somebody, send somebody the link. We're going to get started. Um, and endorsements. I keep getting typos because I'm rushing. I'm going to take my time hitting A instead of S on the keyboard. All right. So we've got a lot to discuss. I hope everyone has had a great weekend. Um, Last night at 11:59, our community input survey closed. It opened on Monday. It was sent to a controlled group across the city. Yes, it was sent to a controlled group across the city of voters across political lines. So it wasn't just one party. It was people from different backgrounds, different races, socioeconomic, profession, like all the things. I was very intentional in that. And everyone, let me answer this call. Hey, I'm live. I'm gonna call you back. Are you about to go to bed? Oh, okay. Yes, ma'am. Bye bye. All righty. Bye bye. Okay, and that was real time. but what was I saying? So yeah, they came from. I was very intentional with the individuals. I also asked the individuals to include their name, not because I wanted to see how they voted per se, um, but because I wanted to control to make sure that someone didn't share. And here's this random person added to the poll or to the survey, right? So I wanted to control who had the survey. Again, I intentionally chose people across political parties, different backgrounds, different communities in Houston. Um, all participants either lived in the 18th or will live in the 18th or will be redistricted into the 18th. That was also important to me. Um, so let's get started. What's interesting, most interesting about the results is how CD18 played out. CD18 was split 60-40. There are several candidates in that race. Um, and even though they're, hold on, let me pull up my notes. There were 7 people included on the survey for CD18. That included, and this is in Amanda Edwards, Christian Menifee, Carmen Maria Montiel, George Foreman, Isaiah Martin, and Jolanda Jones, right? Those were the people included on, let me see if I can airdrop this to myself, to the MacBook. Those were the folks included in the survey for CD18. Of those individuals, only 2 got votes. Only 2. And what that tells me is I don't know what I'm doing. Y'all give me a second. Okay. What that tells me is that voters are interested in cutting this off. Either they're looking at not having a runoff or they're trying their best not to have a runoff. And I've heard that a lot. People are like, we just need to get behind one candidate. I have heard that so much here in this last month. And in the last week, I have heard it multiple times every single day to the point that I started marking it down when someone said it to me or around me. Like, we need to just buckle down and get behind one candidate. I think these results reflect that. And I'm going to share my screen image file. I'm going to share my screen as soon as this rainbow stops flipping around. Open. Okay. So here on the screen, don't know if I can make this larger. Hopefully, I'm not sure if that's making it larger for y'all or not. But here on the screen, you should be able to see this first one is, the first name is Amanda Edwards, because I just read the names to you. So the first name is Amanda Edwards, and she's a very dark blue. Christian Menifee was a red. Carmen Maria Montiel was the mustard gold. George Foreman was green. Isaiah Martin was purple. Jolanda Jones was the bright blue, and hot pink was other. So this is posted on our Facebook and our Instagram. If you follow Pretty Petty Politics, you'll see that there. You'll be able to enlarge it. But I want you to take the time to see that only two colors appear. And so the top portion, or the smaller portion, the 40%, is for Jolanda Jones, and the 60% is for Isaiah Martin. What this tells me, or what I think of this is that voters had made up their mind. Either they're exhausted, but as one of my very close colleagues shared, voters also voted off of name recognition, ballot elected recognition, meaning people who are already in office that they're familiar with. I don't know. I don't know how they voted or why. For the most part, they did have an opportunity to say why they voted the way they did. And some of them left it blank. Some of them made comments. For instance, there were both of them, both Jolanda Jones and Christian Menifee, had remarks that for people who voted for them in this survey, they both were referred to as fighters. Both of them, and they are both fighters. So having said that, to see these results, to also consider, let's look at the hobby polls, right? So the hobby poll from this summer, the hobby poll that came out last week, both of them have remained in the top three, with Christian, this most recent hobby poll. So the Hobby School of Public Affairs over at the University of Houston, in their most recent poll, Menifee was in first, with Edwards in second, and Jones in third. In this survey, in this controlled survey, Edwards didn't receive any votes, which shocked me. Let me be clear, I was very shocked, because every other survey or poll, whatever you want to call it, because people survey you to get a poll. So every other survey or poll has shown those top three. And for this one to be so concentrated and specific, like I said, it was a specific group. They only went between two people. Totally shocked me. Totally shocked me. I even thought Isaiah Martin and George Foreman would have gotten a couple of votes, even Carmen Montiel, because like I said, I included Republicans in this. In fact, one of the Republicans that was polled, they voted for Jolanda Jones. And I spoke with them to make sure that that was correct, just because that was a shocker. Because there was a Republican in this race. There were actually a few Republicans in this race, but only one on this poll, and that was Carmen Montiel. So as you see here, the polled group chose Christian Menifee overwhelmingly with 60%. How will that work come November 4th when all votes are tallied? We shall see. Last week, I think mail-in ballots were still under 1,000. I don't know. I just don't know. And I don't even know if that's accurate, because someone shared that with me. So I don't want to be repeating stuff that I haven't verified. But I will say this: early voting starts tomorrow, October 20th at 7 a.m. I plan to go vote tomorrow. Part of me wants to wait and vote on Wednesday because there is a debate on Tuesday. So I might wait till Wednesday. I doubt if anything said at that debate will sway me away from my current thoughts, but it's possible. So there is a debate on Tuesday sponsored by Thurgood Marshall School of Law and Across the Tracks PAC. So that is also coming up. But Christian Menifee. So today, straight transparency, I attended the rally for Christian Menifee. Um, it was intense. I hadn't seen any other candidate in this race um, show this type of rallying around them. It was a very diverse crowd, diverse not just racially, but also according to genders and ages, right? A lot of different age groups were present, and there were also several families there. Um, Now, could some of that have been because Jasmine Crockett was here? Absolutely. But I also think that probably galvanized them to support Christian Menifee because she is behind him. And one of the quotes that stood out to me today is, she knows she's a fighter, and I'm paraphrasing, really, totally paraphrasing, but he's a fighter too. And he's the kind of person that she knows will fight on Capitol Hill. I will post the actual footage, but that was what she was basically expressing. And there were a lot of folks who came out and endorsed today, local elected officials across generations, across various bodies of representation. So you had County Commissioner Rodney Ellis, you had County Commissioner Fort Bend, who's not a CD18 resident, but County Commissioner from Fort Bend, gosh, I can't think of his name as soon as I said it, Dexter McCoy. You also had City Councilwoman Tiffany Thomas. You had State Representative Lauren Ashley Simmons. So again, there was a lot of people out there supporting Christian Menifee today. I think that speaks to these numbers. I think that speaks to the consistency that we've seen across the major polls, the major local polls. And what I mean by major local polls, I'm talking about Houston Hobby polls that we have seen both this summer and last week. Moving on to at-large 4, and then we can do some Q&A. At-large 4. But first, before I go there, are there any questions about Congressional District 18 special election and the results? So again, Menifee with 60, Jones with 40, and they iced out everybody else. I'm curious to know what y'all think about that. Like, what are your thoughts on that? We're going to come back and talk about your thoughts and everything, but be thinking about that. Maybe jot it down. Also, if you're just joining us, go ahead and share. I don't expect us to be on very long. It's already 8:15, so I'm going to move on to the next race, which is at-large 4 for Houston City Council. Now, in this race, there are a lot of people in this race, but on the survey, it included Al Lloyd, Alejandro Salinas, Dwight Boykins, Jordan Thomas, Kathy Tatum, Martina Lemon Dixon, and then it had a pink that says, I don't have enough information on either candidate, and then a green that said, I literally don't know, right? And those results, where you see the two larger pieces of the pie, that green on the left and that orange, that yellowish gold at the bottom, both of those are 26.7. And the green is Jordan Thomas and the yellow is Dwight Boykins. Kathy Tatum and, which surprised me, Kathy Tatum and Alejandro Salinas were tied, both at 13.3%. I really thought Alejandro Salinas would have more. I was not expecting that from Kathy Tatum. But here's the thing. You can't control what voters do. Their thought process and these things. So the blue that you see next to the purple for Kathy Tatum, that's Martina Lemon Dixon, who's a Republican in this race. She's from Northeast Houston area. The pink is I don't have enough information on either candidate, and the green is I literally don't know. All right. So maybe let's deal with that first. Voter education. Voters do not know enough about the candidates. And I think that that is not just incumbent on the voters to find out. I also think these candidates have to do a better job with their messaging. So many people jump in these races and they have no comms plan. What I mean by that is they have no communication strategies, no plan. They just think they can throw up a Facebook post with their picture on it, and that is communicating to people. You've got to share who you are. You got to get out into the community. You got to do the things. You need to be interviewing with influencers. Like, you've got to be sharing who you are so voters can see who you are and understand more about your campaign. So the fact that we had people who didn't know anything is quite interesting to me. Alejandra Salinas, that surprised me. I interviewed her on Friday. In fact, last week I interviewed what I believe were the top three candidates in this race. Alejandra Salinas on Friday, Jordan Thomas on Thursday, and Dwight Boykins on Wednesday. So let's talk about the top two vote getters, Thomas and Boykins. So because that was a tie, y'all put me in a predicament. So I'm gonna take this screen down so we can talk about it. Because that was a tie, when I stayed up last night, I was cooking. I was cooking for a girlfriend whose husband is hospitalized. And so I was up late, and I remember getting off the phone with my sister. I was like, oh, I can check my poll now. And so I checked the poll because it was after midnight. The poll closed at 11:59. So that gave me a chance to create the post for today and have that ready to go once I got to church, because I wanted to be able to post and not look back at it to the reactions. Because on the flyer, it says we'll be going live at 8. I did that on purpose so I wouldn't be going back and forth with people all day about it. Even though I ran into people and they were asking me questions about why the endorsement went the way it did. So, and I spoke to both candidates today, Dwight Boykins and Jordan Thomas. I planned to call them, but I ran into them at the rally for Christian Menifee and special guest Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. So I had a very tough decision to make, because there was a tie in a survey that I put out. Because we do endorsements at Pretty Petty Politics, and we've been doing this for years, and each time I have a pool of people. It was this year that I became more open about it. I've spoken about it before, but I even said on here multiple times this season, which that's what I call election season. So I've said multiple times this season, if you're interested in being a part of our community input committee, basically those who help us build this endorsement, because I rely on you all, right? I mean, I have my discernment and I do my thing through the interviews, trying to extract information for the community, to do my part with voter education, right? I was not expecting a tie, y'all. I was not expecting a tie. And so when I saw them, I shared with them, for the one who did not get the endorsement, I let them know and I explained briefly why. And then to the one who did get it, I told him congratulations, but he already knew because he had already reposted. He or his team reposted it almost immediately after it was published online this morning on Instagram. So let me stop beating around the bush and get to it. The reason why Jordan Thomas got the endorsement is because two things Dwight Boykins shared in his interview. Well, one thing he shared in his interview, and that was about the fiscal, the dire fiscal health of the city right now, and how the impact of the lump sum payment to the firefighters. That was something that was important to me. That was something that, from talking to voters that I talked to, that they were concerned about. So if you're not familiar, when Mr. Boykins was on city council back in 2019, he ran for mayor. He ran against incumbent mayor Sylvester Turner. but he ran in 2018, I would say late summer 2018, midsummer 2018, he was real strong. He was real strong on the firefighters being paid. No one disagrees that the firefighters needed to be paid. Well, at least I don't disagree that they needed to be paid. But understanding capital planning and fiscal health of government entities, I thought it would be irresponsible to do a lump sum, because if we do a lump sum, it's going to impact the rest of the body, right? So when I say the body, I mean the municipality, the city itself. I am a public servant. I am a public servant. I'm literally a public administrator. That is what I'm trained to do and be. Studied it. That is what I am, who I am. In addition to all the other things, that is what I am in terms of professionalism. I have devoted my career over the years to public administration in various facets, which helps me be very knowledgeable on various topics. I've worked in the city hall. I've worked on the county level. Like, I understand certain things about the operations of these government entities. And so I knew it was a dangerous risk. And the risk was too great, in my opinion. And I voiced it years ago, because we are in 2025. But I voiced it years ago that a lump sum was not the right decision, that they should be paid over time. In my mind, do it over a 5 to 7 year span, giving them payments. That way the city doesn't take such a brunt of such a hit. So that was one of the reasons why I kind of gave a strike to Mr. Boykins. But to me, I'm trying to be considerate and thoughtful. And I went back and watched both videos of the interviews, because those were intimate conversations. Both of those interviews allowed them to expound, for them to answer questions. And I remember I asked him one question about the mayor, and he went and started speaking about Sylvester Turner. And I was like, that light went off in my head. That's the second time I've asked you a question, not on that interview. There's a previous conversation that I'm about to get to, but that was the second time I've asked him direct questions, and he goes somewhere else with it. And so in that interview, you'll see me redirect him like, no, I'm not talking about the Turner administration. I'm talking about the present administration. But so I'll tell you, there was a breakfast series this summer hosted by a local community leader and organizer, where there were some intimate breakfasts with probably about 8 to 10 people. And there was always a special guest, an elected official or someone who may be running for office. There was always a special guest. So one Monday, these were on Mondays. This was during the summer. So like in July and August, one Monday, it was Dwight Boykins. And I recall asking him a very specific question. And people at that table have mentioned that question to me since. And that question was, how will you, as a city councilman, an at-large city councilman, how will you help address not just the food deserts, but also how will you address the loss of revenue to the city of Houston that is being diverted to Pearland, and the loss of revenue to Harris County that's been diverted to Brazoria County? So basically, people along the southern part of our beltway, so think Cullen, Scott, those areas of the beltway over to like South Post Oak. I know people in those areas. They go to Pearland to do their shopping. There's a community south of 610, very close to the Beltway, on both sides. There are communities on both sides of 288 that basically go like Orem over there, Orem and 288, Almeda, Genoa and 288. Those communities, I talk to people, y'all. Yeah, they shop in Pearland. Those are families. They're single family homes, and there are apartment complexes. That's several hundred, if not thousands, of households going to shop in not just another municipality, but in another county. That is tax revenue. And if you don't have an answer for me, even a light answer for me on that, that's problematic. And that light bulb went off in my head. I recounted that conversation because while I was rewatching our interview from last Wednesday, when he did not answer my question, he like went with the Sylvester Turner answer. And I'm like, but that wasn't a question. I'm talking about the current administration. It reminded me he's done that before. So when I asked him that question about that tax revenue, he told me, and I hope someone who was at that breakfast will comment on here, whether in real time or later, but he told, his answer to me was, we need to look at getting houses and getting us some property so we can have money for retirement, because that's what he and his wife did. And that's how, they got them some land. He said, get your house or some land. And, I'm like, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? I was just so like blown away by that answer. And that's really what he said. And again, we were at a breakfast. It was an intimate breakfast with about 8 or 10 people, but he totally missed the alley-oop because I felt like that question was an opportunity for him to really show like his policy ideas, his solution, how to problem solve. And he totally missed it. And as you see here, here's a response to that. They are building a bunch of homes over there too. Like they're still building, but what you don't see is the infrastructure. That's a big problem because we allow developers to come into our city and develop. Great, we need more homes because we're a huge city. However, if you're going to do planned communities, you've got to account for what those communities will need. Those communities will need grocery stores. I've worked in city government. I know that municipalities have the ability to, municipalities own land. Let's clear that up. But municipalities have the ability to lease out land, for $1 for a number of years just to attract companies who may not otherwise want to come there, but now we've made it more attractive to them financially. So they'll come, but you're also satisfying a greater need for the community. I've seen this happen. I know it's possible, but that won't even be the answer. You could show them the number of roofs, the number of roofs in an area and show, look, your competitor just 2 exits down, or actually the exit for the Beltway, and then the next exit is 2234. So 2 exits down, that Kroger in Pearland, Brazoria County, is getting a whole lot of revenue from Houston Harris County, from both ends, from South Post Oak to Scott. I know this. I've been to people's houses when they be like, I need to run to the grocery store, and they be running to Pearland. And they'll also go further down. They'll go to 518 to HEB. I have seen this. I know people who live off Cullen who will just take Cullen straight down to 518 and go to that grocery store at 518 in Cullen, past the cemeteries, right? Past the municipality and across the street from the post office. I have seen this in real time. People from Houston will go into another municipality and shop. That's revenue. Even if they're filling up gas, that's revenue. That I don't think, well, I know the average person doesn't think like this, but people who work in government who make decisions, fiscal decisions, need to be thinking like this. Not just those of us who work in government as public administrators, who work in the planning department or in the public safety department or in permits, like not just those of us who have routine careers in government organizations, but the leaderships who are voting and creating policy. They must begin to think this way. So if Mr. Boykins wins, I hope he takes me up on that. That's my biggest critique. And that was why at the end of the day, I, not the community, not a community endorsed Christian, but I endorsed Jordan Thomas. And so I can speak to that. I could not endorse any other candidate in that race, because then that would be, to me, inappropriate, um, because the survey had already spoken that those were the two. So if it wasn't going to be Dwight, then clearly it had to be Jordan. Um, I hope that makes sense. It was something else that I asked. I asked them both about the firefighters. I actually asked all three of them about those decisions. It was like rapid questions. They were supposed to just be yes or no, but they all had to talk. And so they did. They gave their own rationale and other information when I asked those rapid questions last week to the three of them. Again, I interviewed Salinas on Friday, Thomas on Thursday, and Boykins on Wednesday. Again, I was shocked. I was shocked that it was tied like that. I thought Salinas was going to poll better than that. I thought they would be in the top three, but it ended up being top four because Kathy Tatum scooted up in there and she was tied with Salinas. But the two of them together were axed out because of the tie between Dwight Boykins and Jordan Thomas was evenly split at 26, I think 26.7 or something like that. So that is how we got to the endorsement of Jordan Thomas. Okay. Now, if Jordan, so here's the thing though, the endorsement is there. I'm not backing away from it. I've already had friends challenge me on it, and I respect their their stance on it, and I understand the relationships and their familiarity with Mr. Boykins and the programs that he runs. But there's a principle that I knew I had to stand on without showing favoritism. Now, I also told them, and that was a bias because of that question that I had previously asked him, but I had tucked it away because I figured, you gonna get it, you gonna get it. So, but when I went back and did the replay and I saw that how he deflected and went to Turner when I'd asked him a Whitmire question, that reminded me of when he had deflected this summer when I asked him the question about the loss of revenue to this other city and county. So let me talk about why that is important, just to put some framework around that. We talk about our schools and our roads here. Schools and roads depend on revenue. Revenue comes from, we get revenue from sales tax. There are no hotels on that end of town. So if you have guests coming into town, a lot of people, I've seen this happen too. They put them up in the Hilton Garden Inn on 2234 down in Shadow Creek, or they put them at the Pearland Town Center. I have seen this. I've gone to somebody's little family reunion and have seen this at that, I think it's a Marriott property, a courtyard at the Pearland Town Center, where somebody who lived on the south end of Houston, that's where they put their relatives. So we're losing revenue. And so when you see that multiple times, or say a storm comes and you need to go check into a hotel because you've lost power, the city of Houston is not getting that revenue if your nearest hotel is out of the city. We have to address infrastructure in so many ways. Businesses, roads, viaducts, bayous, we have to address infrastructure across the city, not just in these inside the loop neighborhoods, which I love because I live in one, but we have to do it across the city. And that is something that all elected officials in the city of Houston, meaning City Hall, City Council, as well as Harris County, that is something, that is an opportunity for us to do a study, a feasibility study, do a study on how maybe not feasibility, but do a study to see how much revenue is likely being lost to counties or to other municipalities just because we don't have suitable resources for our residents. And y'all know how much groceries cost? You know how many groceries people buy, right? And people are not just buying groceries. I'm using groceries as an example, but people go to the grocery store, they're buying things that do have tax. So I know the groceries, like the food typically doesn't, but there's a lot of products in the grocery stores that we buy that are taxed, like your paper towels. You know how much paper towels cost? Toilet tissue, all of your toiletries, many things have taxes. That's revenue. But let's say they go to Target and they're going shopping for clothes, or they go to Walmart. We as a city, we're losing revenue. We're losing revenue. They go to Academy, they go to Hobby Lobby. They are not going to those stores in Houston because they're not accessible. Now you go to other parts of Houston, and those resources are there in those general areas. And I just gave y'all a perimeter, just a slice of the Beltway. So if we say Cullen or Wayside, let's say Wayside, right? Wayside down to South Post Oak. What's happening? Now, those at South Post Oak may go to, I think that's a Home Depot or a Lowe's, like a Dollar Tree and a Ross off Hillcroft, but they might go into Missouri City to go to the store if they're down there by Fuquay, right? We have to address the needs of our community. Not everyone wants to go shop at Fiesta or Joe V's. Let's face it, in Texas, we love our HEB. And so if the nearest HEB is across the county line, that means out of our city, typically, that's a problem. And so we have to address it. So that is why the endorsement went the way it did. It came down to that. And I don't feel bad about it because he was campaigning at that time. And it just seemed to me that when faced with questions he doesn't want to answer, he deflects. So what happens when a constituent or constituents and community organizers and community groups are making demands and he doesn't want to deal with it? Is he going to deflect? You know, and as an at-large city council member, this is different from being a district member. This is a opportunity. Like, as an at-large member, you have the opportunity to like go anywhere. That's an opportunity to collaborate with District K and D, right? You see how that works? That's an opportunity. Now you're showing that across the city, these are demands, these are needs. And hell, I might be selling an idea, and I ain't mad at it if one of y'all pick it up. Just call me in for a conference so I can be a consultant. Let me get in where I fit in. But no, seriously, these are the type of things that we as residents have to be concerned about. How do our electeds listen to us? How do our electeds see us? At the end of the day, they work for you. You do not work for them. At the end of the day, they are our employees. But if we are not holding them accountable or to any standard, then what? Right? I think we have, to whom much is given. I don't think this, I know this. To whom much is given, much is expected or required, or both. Let's say both, expected and required. To whom much is given, much is expected and required. Okay. And so that's that. So when it comes to the amendments, on the amendments, I want to tell y'all just vote no on all of them. And the reason why, and that's not what I'm saying, but I want to be able to say that. And I'm going to show this again. Hold on. Let's see how I can move this. I need to move that media at the bottom, so y'all can see it. The reason why I say I want to tell y'all to vote all no is because the fact that our state legislature put these amendments up at a time where voter turnout is so super low, because this is not a statewide election year where we're electing statewide officials, and this is not a federal election year where we're electing federal officials, right? So voter turnout is going to be super duper duper low, and they know that. So it's almost like they're trying to sneak in, get these propositions passed so that they can become amendments to the state constitution. Now, if you know anything about the state of Texas and our state constitution, It is massive. It is massive. And some of these things don't necessarily need to be amendments to the Constitution. So, according to the survey, the community input survey, so the respondents to the survey, they were for number 7, 10, 13, and 14, number 1, 9, 11, and 15, and they were 50-50 split by the other 9. All right, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 12, 16, and 17. I say vote no on all of them, but that would be irresponsible just to tell you that, kinda. But I will say this: I was thinking about there's one for veterans. I think you should vote yes on, but when it comes to the exemptions, the homeowners thing, and there are 2 of them. There's one for like older people who are homeowners. There's an exemption for them, and then there's one for homeowners overall, right? The problem with those, and the light just clicked for me, y'all, because I was all for it. Like, let folks get a break. But what I remembered was, first of all, little girl, you are an educator. Schools rely on tax revenue. So, little girl, you need to rethink this. Not just because you work in higher ed, but also because you believe in public education, and I do. I'm a 4th generation educator, so I believe in public education. I believe in private education too, if you can afford it. Okay, I went to public schools. Should have been up to 9th grade, but we had a car accident, so I didn't start till 11th. So I spent my last 2 years in boarding school. So I'll be transparent, right? Not everybody has the opportunity to go to private school. But recently here in Texas, we passed this voucher. Y'all remember the vouchers? Y'all ain't forgot about the vouchers. And so the vouchers are taking public funding and handing it off to private schools. So we're taking public tax dollars, giving it to private schools. You see the problem with that? So that means public schools are not getting as much already. First of all, they don't take care of public schools anyway. Educators, you don't hear nobody ever, let me take this down. You don't ever hear anybody talking about the base salary in the state of Texas for all public school, and I'm not even talking about college. Let's just talk about K through 12. All public school teachers, their starting salaries need to be at least $85,000. They are underpaid. No one says that. Nobody. Y'all be like, y'all get the whole summer off. Y'all don't need that. We get the whole summer off. We don't need that. Do you understand that our paychecks, they're not giving us our whole paycheck in the months that we earn it? They're holding it and giving it to us those other months. That helps the districts more than it helps us. Imagine how much better off people would be if they had all their money at once, right? People do not appreciate educators. And I just got to say that. You don't appreciate us. When we want something, when we need something, it's why? Why I got to buy classroom supplies? The school should be providing that. With what money? Teachers spend so much money. I remember when I taught in public schools, and when I first started teaching, and the tax preparer was like, what you spend on school supplies? I was like, I don't know. They were like, well, what do you buy? I was like, I don't keep up with all that. Every month, I get my paycheck. I go buy stuff in my classroom for my students. It's like, you need to start taking a record of that. We do this. The school should pay for it, but we do. Teachers do still. Now you see more and more in elementary schools where they have like a pool. They're pooling things together because they understand some families just ain't got it. And those kids should not have to go without just because their parents don't have it. And so it's a community, and kids are learning, or families should be teaching them the importance of everyone doing their part to help each other. But anyway, don't get me started. So when it comes to those 2 tax exemptions, it does make me feel a certain kind of way. And I'm going to finish this whole video in about 5 more minutes. These tax exemptions do make me feel some kind of way because education just got knocked in the jaw with these vouchers here in Texas. And now this. And now this. And I don't think enough people are paying attention to how monies keep leaving public education instead of monies coming into public education. I think all educators should get a lump sum settlement, like the Houston firefighters, like across the state, K through 12, and colleges and universities, state institutions, state colleges and universities. I do. I do. The expectation that's put on us is just, it's crazy. It's crazy. And so we know that ain't going to happen, though. But now we're talking about more tax exemption. That funding, schools, I'll never forget this. And I'm going to close with this before I go to the last part. I'm going to close this commentary. I remember my eighth grade. Actually, I remember all of my junior high, middle school history teachers. Sixth grade, sixth grade, I had the same teacher for everything, Treywick. Seventh grade, I had this lady named Miss Sheldon. She was awful. Oh, she was awful. She hated me because I read the encyclopedia. So she used to be coming for me. I'd be like, no, this is what it is. Then in eighth grade, I had this lady named Miss Heyman. I think her husband taught math and she taught social studies. Miss Heyman, I'll never forget this. And I don't know if Miss Heyman will hear this. If y'all know Miss Heyman from Lakeland, Florida, she used to teach at Lake Gibson Middle Junior High. We were the Sharks and I was the Shark. I was the mascot. But Miss Heyman told us, and I'll never forget this, that, you know, some people feel like because they don't have kids or they don't have kids in school that they should not have to pay taxes that help fund schools. Well, when you take care of education, you take care of kids, that's less truancy. That's kids being in school. That's reducing arguably crime, you know, that's preparing the next generation. Like, do y'all not think about that? Why it's important to take care of education? Like, you're literally preparing the next generation. For those of you who are entrepreneurs who own brick and mortar businesses, I know so many business owners who are hiring and they're like going crazy because the workforce, the younger workforce, just they're not prepared. Oh, this could be a whole series on education, but I'm not going to go there. So y'all can vote for the exemption. I will not be mad at you, but I'm not sure. Maybe I do need to wait till Wednesday. I'm not sure that I'm convinced to vote for those because I'm thinking about the loss that has already occurred with the vouchers or the losses that will occur because of the vouchers and how this will just compact that. Like, how will that just be an add-on to that, another strike against public education in the state of Texas? So that's something to think about. I know early voting starts tomorrow. You have until the 31st of October to vote early, and election day is Tuesday, the 4th of November. All right. So make your decision, have your voting plan, but think about those amendments. And if you want to learn more about the amendments, visit the League of Women Voters of Houston, and they have some layouts about the amendments. I think the Texas Tribune has some, but you can always email us and we'll send you over some material for you to review, not to tell you what to do, but for you to review. But if you are interested in what the community input survey provided, this is what they provided. Okay. And again, this information is available on our Instagram page as well as our Facebook page, Pretty Petty Politics. So that is it on that. Are there any questions? I see Andrea Hodges put in here. Let's go, Jordan Thomas. That's good. Jordan has supporters out here, jumped on. And Jordan did get the endorsement today. And let me be clear, the endorsement wasn't just because of what Dwight did. The endorsement was also because I read through some of the comments and reflections about the votes in the survey, and people were like, time for what do they say? Basically, it's time for somebody new. No more of the old, what we always get. Another thing, I think Jordan, having been on the chief of staff, and he talks about this in our interview, having been a chief of staff and trying to push his electeds to make decisions and the pushback. What that tells me is because a lot of times your chief of staff sees things that you don't, right? they hear things that you don't as an elected, because their job requires them to interact with um, not just the public, but also with the actual practitioners in government, those who are facilitating things. Chief of staff is a very important role, right? I think that experience, and he did it for two different city council members in the same office that he's running for now. So, and both of them now, Jordan, I'm sure you're listening, or your team is. I know your supporters are here. Okay, I'm gonna come back to your comment. I'm sure your supporters are here, but Jordan and I can text them because I got all their text, all their phone numbers. Now, what you bet not do is what your two predecessors have done, if you get the opportunity to represent us, because Mr. Boykins can get it, Miss Salinas, Miss Tatum, Miss Dixon, like anybody can get it, right? And I'm just saying. But Jordan, if you get this role, what you bet not do is two things. One, you better not stop listening and answering to the voters, and not just those who voted for you, but all residents. So make sure that you're meeting the needs and demands of all communities, or you're doing your due diligence to do that. Okay, that's number one. Number two, what you bet not do is, because we're gonna talk about you and we're gonna do a whole campaign against you. I'm telling you now, don't get up in here like your two predecessors and leave that office to run for something else. Finish it. Show us that you really want it. Okay. And that's no shade to them, because I'm not saying people have to be limited at all, because when your time come, your time come. But you do your best to finish your term. Okay. Please. So that the city can benefit. Don't just do it for your career because July is saying it, but so the city can receive the benefit. City council, y'all now serve 4-year terms. Make it work. Make it work. You serve two council members, one at the end of her term, one at the end of her term, her first term, and another one at the beginning of her first term, who is now running for county judge, and the other one is now running for Congress. I mean, kudos to them both. Don't get me wrong, but we gonna need you. If you want this job, let's do this job. And if you're gonna leave this job, make sure while you're doing this job, you do it so well that we be like, yeah, we understand, right? Make sure you do it very well. If you are gonna jump out on it, make sure you do it very well where people can get behind you and be like, yeah, I get it. I get it. We sad to see you go, but we get it because you've done this job very well. We can be like, well done, good and faithful councilman. All right, so here is a comment. The League of Women Voters does an excellent job of laying out the pros and cons for the amendments. Yes, they do. Another comment, the communities are hurting and we need stability right now. We need elected officials that will put us over their ambitions. Okay, so that's all I got. Y'all got any other questions, comments? This video is way longer than I intended it for it to be, but hey, I guess it was necessary. Go once, going twice. When is early voting? October 20th. It begins tomorrow, Monday, October 20th, and it concludes on Halloween, October 31st, and Election Day is November 4th. That is all for this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to Pretty Petty Politics. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page and you follow us on Facebook. Have a good evening. Peace out.